Harry asks Dobby why he's wearing the old pillowcase, the stained and dirty one. And Dobby says, "This, sir, 'tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his masters present him with clothes, sir. The family's careful not to pass Dobby even a sock, sir, for then he would be free to leave their house forever." Dobby tells Harry about the bludger. And Dobby says, "I only wanted you to be hurt enough to be sent home." Okay? And then Dobby says, very bottom of the page, "Oh, if only Harry Potter knew. If he knew what he means to us, to the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Dobby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his powers, sir. We house elves were treated like vermin, sir. Of course, Dobby is still treated like that, sir, but mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir, and Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark age would never end, sir. And now at Hogwarts, terrible things are to happen, or perhaps happening already, and Dobby cannot let Harry Potter stay here now that history is to repeat itself, now that the Chamber of Secrets is open once more." And Dobby stops. Okay, now notice how Dobby described Harry. If Harry knew what he means to us, to the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Dobby is talking there about all the people in the magical world who don't count. The people who no one else pays any attention to. The creatures that the witches and wizards look down their noses at. If we were to extrapolate from this to the real world, we would say, these are the people without power in our society. Whether they are homeless or whether they are, the way many of us feel, just working for a living and working paycheck to paycheck and mouth to hand to mouth kind of a thing. That's what Dobby means. Okay? The lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Now, who does that include? That includes house elves. That includes goblins. That includes centaurs. That would include giants. In other words, it would include all magical beings except witches and wizards. And he says that when you, Harry, defeated the Dark Lord, it was a new dawn. Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. He shone. He cast a bright light down into a dark world. Kind of sound like anything? Does it suggest anything? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the same was in the beginning with God. And then it goes on in the prologue to John's Gospel to talk about how the Word was light. Light. Harry is a light to people. Later on, we're actually even going to have, in a later book, Lucius Malfoy referred to him as Patronus Potter. Keep in mind what that means and what happens when you do the Expecto Patronum spell. A light comes out of your wand. Okay? So, Dobby mentions that the Chamber of Secrets had been opened before. Harry says he's not going anywhere, page 179. He says, "One of my best friends is Muggleborn. She'll be first in line if the chamber really has opened." And Dobby says, "Harry Potter risked his own life for his friends. Greater love hath no man than this, than that he is willing to lay down his life for his friends," Christ says. "So noble, so valiant. But he must save himself. He must. Harry Potter must not." Well, for those of you who have read it all, jump to the end of book 7. Does Harry Potter work to save himself? No. No. the very requirement of sacrifice is that you don't think of yourself. You only think of the others. Those whom you are sacrificing yourself for, those whom you are willing to say, I will die so that they may live. Essentially like what Frodo does in The Lord of the Rings. He will leave the Shire so that the Shire may be saved. Okay? Dobby leaves. We see McGonagall and Dumbledore wheel in someone else. We find out it's Colin Creevey. On page 180, McGonagall asks, what does this mean, Albus? It means, said Dumbledore, that your chamber of secrets is indeed open again. But Albus, surely who? The question is not who, the question is how. Notice that if you take who and rearrange the letters, you get how. Well, we're going to see a rearranging of letters later on. Just kind of an interesting little possible clue. So we get the dueling club. We're going to skip a bunch because all that's really important in the dueling club is when Harry speaks to the snake. We can skip all the stuff about Lockhart and Snape and all that. Okay? Harry speaks to the snake and the snake backs off. And on page 195, they leave. They go back up to the Gryffindor common room. And Ron tells Harry, you're a Parselmouth. Why didn't you tell us? I'm a what? A Parselmouth. You could talk to snakes. I know. I mean, it's only the second time I've ever done it. I accidentally set a boa constrictor on my cousin Dudley at the zoo once. Long story. Okay. They keep talking. Harry doesn't understand the significance of all this. And Ron says, you know, that was Salazar Slytherin's particular gift. And says, you know, everyone's going to think you're the heir of Slytherin, Harry, but I'm not, he says at the bottom of 196. Hermione, yeah, but you're going to find that hard to prove. And then Harry goes to bed that night and he starts wondering, could I be Slytherin's heir? The Sorting Hat wanted to put me into Slytherin. Okay. Next morning, people are kind of edging their way around Harry. We see in the library Ernie Macmillan saying things about Harry and saying, you know, Justin Finch Fletchley told Harry, you know, that he was down for Eton. And says some other things to Harry. Okay. Page 202. Harry leaves the library and he's going upstairs. And he sees in the middle of the passageway, lying on the floor, Justin Finch Fletchley was lying on the floor, rigid and cold. But that wasn't all. Next to him was another figure, nearly headless Nick. It's page 202. So whatever it is that petrifies living people and animals, he can also petrify a ghost. Harry looks at nearly headless Nick. He looks at Justin. He looks up and down the corridor. He sees a line of spiders running as fast as they can away from the bodies. And we're told he could run and no one would ever know he had been there. But he couldn't just leave them lying there. He had to get help. Again, in a dangerous situation, he doesn't think about himself. He thinks about the others. Peeves comes, announces that, you know, Harry has done this. And we have page 2, the next chapter, Polyjuice Potion. Harry goes up to Dumbledore's office. Hagrid comes in too. But before Hagrid does, Harry goes in and nobody's in there. And so he sees the Sorting Hat and he puts the hat on. And the hat says, be on your bonnet, Potter. He says, I wanted to ask, you've been wondering whether I put you in the right house. Yes, you were particularly difficult to place. But I stand by what I said before. You would have done well in Slytherin. Harry says, you're wrong, and throws the hat down. He turns around and he sees, bottom of 206, top of 207, that Dumbledore's pet bird burst into flames. And he tells Dumbledore, I couldn't do anything, he just caught fire. And Dumbledore tells Harry he's a phoenix. And then he goes on. It's a shame you had to see him on a burning day, said Dumbledore, seating himself behind his desk. He's really very handsome most of the time. Wonderful red and gold plumage. Red and gold plumage. What's that the color of? Oh yeah, Gryffindor house. They can carry immensely heavy loads, their tears have healing powers, and they make highly faithful pets. They can carry immensely heavy loads. Come to me, all you heavy laden and weary, for my yoke is light. Another possible biblical allusion. While Harry's talking with Dumbledore, then Hagrid bursts in, and Dumbledore says, I know it wasn't Harry. Hagrid, now leave. But he does have a question for Harry, top of 209. He says, Harry, is there anything you'd like to tell me? Anything at all? And Harry thinks for a moment, and he remembers Ron saying, you know, hearing voices isn't a good sign, not even in the wizarding world. And so he says, no, there isn't, Professor. So they make the Polyjuice potion, and Harry and Ron go down to the Slytherin common room, and they talk with Malfoy in their Polyjuice potion forms as Crabbe and Goyle. And they hear Malfoy say that he's not the heir of Slytherin, but that he really wish he knew who it was. And they go back up to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Excuse me. And they finally see Hermione, and she's been polyjuiced as a cat. So then we get the very secret diary chapter. Harry and Ron go into the bathroom again, Moaning Myrtle's. And Myrtle makes reference to somebody having thrown something at her. And Harry picks it up, and it turns out to be a book. Page 232. Harry shows shows Hermione T.M. Riddle's diary and told her the story of how they had found it. And Ron says, Riddle, he knows that name. Okay, and they start to talk because Ron saw the name Riddle on a plate that he had to polish when he served detention with Filch. And Riddle went to the school 50 years previously. On page 232. Harry looks at Hermione's face and he could tell what she was thinking. Ron can't. Ron goes, what? And Harry says, well, the Chamber of Secrets was opened 50 years ago, wasn't it? That's what Malfoy said. Yeah. And this diary is 50 years old, says Hermione. So? Oh, wake up, Ron. We know the person who opened the chamber last time was expelled 50 years ago. We know T.M. Riddle got an award for special services to the school 50 years ago. Well, what if Riddle got a special award for catching the heir of Slytherin? His diary would probably tell us everything. Where the chamber is, how to open it, what sort of creature lies within it. Ron says, well, that's a brilliant theory, Hermione, but there's nothing written in this. Okay? So they start to think about it. And Valentine's Day comes, and Ginny has one of Lockhart's silly little dwarves sing the song. Harry goes up to his room, and he sits down with Tom Riddle's diary. Drops some ink on it. The ink gets sucked in. So Harry writes his name. His name disappears, and out of the same color ink comes, hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary? And so pages 240 and following, Harry goes into Tom Riddle's diary and experiences what Riddle experienced. That is, he looks into the book because he sees